Now I'm going to show you how we can represent our data using a divided bar graph. So we have our same data as before. I surveyed students, asked them how many siblings they had. These were their results in a frequency distribution table. Now, in order to do a divided bar graph, I need a title, first of all, so I know what it is that I'm graphing. And then I'm going to draw a big bar, like one big rectangle. Now, there are two different ways that you can break up your divided bar graph. You can do it the Mrs. Walters way, which is what you do when you don't have a ruler with you, or you can do it the proper way, which is where you will need a ruler and you'll need a calculator as well. But first, I'll show you my way. So here I've got my bar, and I've essentially, these little lines underneath, I have broken the bar up into 17 pieces, I suppose, because I put 16 little lines, which will give me 17 slices of, not pie, but the bar. And I'm just going to allocate the correct number of slices to each of these scores. So, for example, the score 0 has 3, so it needs 3 slices. So 1, 2, 3. So I'm going to draw a line up here. So that's 0. Okay, and then 4 slices for the next one. So 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 1. Okay, and then 6 slices for the number 2. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Draw a line up here. So that's for the number 2. The number 3 has 2 slices, 1, 2. There we go. And then the last 2 have 1 slice each, 4 and 5. Awesome. Obviously, this way is not overly precise because I did do it freehand. However, you can still use this method if you have a ruler with you. It definitely helps if your bar is drawn in, I suppose, multiples of whatever your total is. So because mine was in, I had 17 scores all up. If I had drawn my bar 17 centimeters long, I could allocate 1 centimeter per section. Or, I could do a multiple of 17, so 2 lots of 17, so 2 centimeters equals each one, something like that. That will make it much easier, and this method will definitely work. Okay, now let's do the proper official way, I suppose. So let me draw another bar. For 0, to calculate how much of my bar is going to be allocated to the score 0, I'm going to write the 3 as a fraction of the total. So I've got the number 3, and it's out of 17. And then I multiply it by how wide my bar is. So I get my measuring tape or my ruler, and I measure how long my bar is. I'm just going to guess, and I'm going to say it's 50 centimeters. So I'm going to times it by 50 centimeters. Okay, so I'm putting in my fraction, so 3 divided by 17, and I'm timesing it by 50. So it says 8.8. So 8.8 centimeters. So that means that I would then get my ruler and I would measure 8.8 centimeters across here, and that is how wide my first slice would be. So, I don't know, 8.8 centimeters might be about there. So 8.8 centimeters, and that would be for score 0. All right, let's do it again for score number 1. So I write it as a fraction, so it's 4 out of 17 this time. And the reason it's that fraction is because 4 people out of the 17 voted for that option. So 4 over 17, and then I times it by 50. I get 11.76, so that rounds up. So 11.8. Cool. So then I would get out my ruler and I would measure 11.8 centimeters. Do that here. It's probably about, I don't know, maybe there. So 11.8. So that would be number 1. Then I go ahead and I do that for all of my scores. So for the next one, it was 6 out of 17, and I get 17.6. 0.64, so 4 rounds down, so 17.6. Oh, probably be about there somewhere. 17.6. And that's the number 2. So I'm writing these measurements up the top so that you can see how wide the bar is supposed to be. It's probably useful to do that if you're doing this in the exam as well. That way your teacher knows that you've calculated it correctly. Okay, then we're up to number 4, which has 2 votes. And that gives us 5.8. You can see why I like my way better. It's a bit tedious. 5.8 would probably be about here somewhere. Let's see, 5.8, and that's for number 3. Okay, then there's 1 vote for both number 4 and 5, so these ones will be the same. So 1 divided by 17 times 50, and it will be 2.9. So it'll be about here, 2.9, and then this one will be about here, which means I've made my bar too wide. So I'll rub that bit out. Of course, yours would be perfectly measured and perfectly accurate because you will be using a ruler. But yeah, so the first option would be to draw a bar that is in multiples of whatever your total is. So for example, if your total is 17, you might draw your bar 17 centimeters wide, and then you'll have 1 centimeter for each slice, and you allocate the correct number of slices per score. So for example, score number 1 will have 4 slices, so 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's how wide that section of the bar is going to be. Now, if you want to do it the proper official method, what you do is you write that score as a fraction over the total and times it by however many centimeters wide your total bar is. So this way is probably best if you're given a bar and you have to fill it in. Whereas if you can draw your own bar, it's probably easier to just use the first method that I like. All right. Thank you for watching.